Carrasco, and thank you for reading.
Manny Pacquiao, the gold, I don't think there will be a problem for Manny.
Has its share of great fights. But every once in a while, human mind can also be controlled and muscle. Again, happening in nothing.
PM, only here on Para sa Bayan.
That's the opening bell for Round by Round presented by Eastern Communications. Mabuhay Pilipinas, welcome world. I'm Nisi Casiano.
And I'm Ryan Sangalia. Boyd Stone joins us later on in the show.
Exactly a week ago, Manny Pacquiao announced his retirement from the sport of boxing. Ryan, we get to hear the saying, timing is everything every once in a while. But like any individual, Manny has his personal goals, and it's normal for any regular person to pursue what he desires the most. However, it's a crucial and tricky time for Philippine boxing. Number one, ALA Promotions is no longer around. You can really say that boxing events in the Philippines are in full swing because promoters have to go to cities and provinces with lesser restrictions. Other boxers would have to fly to the US and stay there and actually wait for a fight. In short, we cannot stop Manny Pacquiao from chasing what he wants to do or accomplish. But can you say that he retired at a time where Philippine boxing needed him the most?
No, I think that boxing, particularly boxing in the Philippines, is always going to be about more than just one fighter. Pacquiao occupied a large space in Philippine boxing, obviously because he's one of the greatest fighters who's ever lived. But I think that this is a moment of great opportunity for other Filipinos because so many other Filipino boxers were living in his shadow. Now, Nonito Donaire Jr., he was an amazing talent. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. But imagine if Pacquiao wasn't around. I think he would have been a bigger star. But, Pacquiao occupied so much space there. Now is an opportunity for fighters like Jovan Cajas, Mark Magsayo, John Real Casimero to step up and try to fill that void. This is where they need to start showing that there's a power vacuum. They have to fill that vacuum. So no, I don't think Philippine boxing needs Pacquiao. I think that his time has come and gone, and now let the next era begin.
Speaking of that, Manny Pacquiao obviously leaves a big void. Do you think Philippine boxing has prepared for itself for this new chapter of the industry?
Sure. I mean, I think on the business side, probably not as much because I think that you're going to have television stations or whatever the next medium is that people get their watch their boxing on. I think they need to step up their game and start a grassroots program of introducing people to the fighters. Like back in the day, there used to be a blow by blow, right? Which you used to show a lot of the upcoming fighters. I think we can go even further down the rabbit hole and start showing grassroots amateur boxing. I would love to see Palamang Pambansa boxing, for instance. I would love to see Batang Pinoy boxing. That level of boxing introduced because a lot of the great fighters came from those programs. So if we can get people invested in their stories and show that these are guys who have been working hard for all these years, and then when it comes time for them to fight for the championship, we know who they all are. Manny Pacquiao was a star in the Philippines before he went to America. Why is that not the norm anymore? Now it's like, a guy has to go to America and become something, or else no one cares. Like Jovan Cajas was like the longest. It was like an overnight success that took like 10, 15 years to, the longest night of his life. So I think that's where we need to see improvement is on how we get the information to the people because the fighters are going to fight.
Speaking of, you mentioned that it has been a one-man show for quite a while, but a lot of people feel that Philippine boxing is heading back to dormancy. But to be honest, I don't recall that Philippine boxing was ever dormant even before Manny Pacquiao rose to stardom. But who do you feel that will become the next poster boy of Philippine boxing?
I mean, that's tough to say. There may not be a poster boy of Philippine boxing. We may see like different fighters sprouting out and this person will be getting his attention. Like in the 90s, we had Jerry Peñalosa, we had Luisito Espinosa. There was no central figure. And I think that that can be okay. I don't think that we need to have like this sort of like personality cult around a single fighter. And, I think that we can enjoy that. Boxing has been this preferred path for a lot of young people to rise up and try to improve their socioeconomic standing. I think that we can see someone like German Cajas. I would like to see him step up and fight one of the top 115-pound fighters. Win or lose, he can do something, and I think that he can, enhance his reputation. General Casimero is not afraid of anyone. I think he'd fight Godzilla if money was right. Actually, I don't think the money had to be right. I think you just find anything. But I think that that's the kind of I want to see these people step up and show that, hey, listen, I'm putting Philippine boxing on my back, and let's see some friendly rivalries emerge.
Ryan, you mentioned about the time when we had Jerry Peñalosa, Luis Espinosa. Now let's coin it, the new collective. Do you think it's more interesting now because you have John Riel Casimero, who's embracing the anti-hero persona, and now fighters are not afraid to call out each other and engage into Filipino versus Filipino affairs?
I love it, actually. I was one of those early proponents back when it was like kind of taboo for Filipinos to fight each other. I said, how can you be the world champion if you're not even the champion of the Philippines yet? So I remember when Casimero I was sitting at the table with him at one of the Alorde Awards events, and he's like, Cajas is on the other side of the table. He's like, I want to fight that guy. And like, I was like, yeah, I'll put that on video. Let's talk about that. That's awesome.
I believe that it was in 2017.
It may have been. Yeah. I just love it because I think that this is the kind of spirit that has to be in boxing. It's not like, oh, we're all buddy. I think that sort of mentality hurts boxing. I think, you have to be a savage. You're like, listen, I'm a champion, whatever, but we're both from the same country, but if it's me or you, hey, it's going to be me, it's like the NSYNC song goes. So I would love to see that more. I think I think Casimero is a really fun personality for boxing in the Philippines. I think that, he's being himself. This is really who he is. Anyone who's known him all these years knows he's this kind of crazy guy. And I think that, getting out of this mold of the clone Filipino boxer, like, yes, who do you want to fight? Whoever my promoter says. I don't care what your promoter says. I'm not interviewing your promoter. I'm interviewing you. You tell me who you want to fight. You want to get paid or not, huh? You do your talking in the ring. You know what? You're not going to do your counting at the bank.
It's time for our fearless fighter of the day, presented by Eastern Communications. And he's none other than Carlo Cesar Peñalosa, the nephew of Jerry and Dodi Boy Sr. He holds a record of 14 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, with 7 victories by way of knockout. Peñalosa is now in LA waiting for a fight. Ryan, whether I like it or not, we go way back. But like our friendship, well, I don't really know if you see it that way, but Carlo has been around the game for quite a while. To be honest, I've seen him fight at the Makati Cinema Square, Mandaluyong Gymnasium, and the place to be, the Flash Grand Ballroom. And can you give us an assessment of his growth through the years? And do you feel that this opportunity to train in the United States is quite a long and overdue, considering that he bears a famous last name?
Well, I think that whatever potential he has, it will be maximized by getting out of his comfort zone. In the Philippines, he is Peñalosa. That's boxing royalty name. In Los Angeles, nobody cares what your last name is. You got to go out there and fight. So if he's going to be training with some of the LA boys, we're talking about right now, Mark McSayo's over there, German and Cajas is out there. If he's going to be with those guys, he'll have some good, company there, but he won't have sort of like this, silver spoon in his mouth there because no one cares what your name is. So I think that whatever ability he has, he can maximize there.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what he can do. In the times he stepped up, he has, fallen short. I remember the Maximino Flores fight. That was an important test because Flores is a tough guy. I thought he beat Milan Melindo, and Flores just took the fight to him and beat him by decision. Let's see what Peñalosa can do, because by him going to the U.S., I know that shows that he has some desire to make it work, and so let's see what happens.
And that's our Eastern Communications Fearless Fighter of the Day. The Klitschko brothers and the Charlo twins are just two of the many siblings in professional boxing. Tonight on Round by Round, we're putting a little twist on it as we will go through a list of brothers in Philippine boxing. First on our list, but the Padilla brothers, Carlos and Jose Jr. These two were known to be actors in the golden age of Philippine cinema, but not many people nowadays know that these brothers had mad skills inside the ring. Jose Jr. represented the country at the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles and at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. Ryan, at least the Padilla brothers proved that boxers could actually be good actors, right?
Oh yeah, no, it just shows you that back then it was,
Yeah.
you could be a boxer, like that's just like a normal trade, and then I think I'll just start in acting now. Yeah.
Well, next on our list is Albert and Jason Pagara. There was a lot of hype surrounding the two before, Ryan. But why do you think Albert and Jason weren't able to break the glass ceiling?
Well, I think that you mentioned one of those words was glass, and I think that Albert had a little bit too much glass in his chin. He had all the skills, all the ability, but he got hit and things started to fall apart. And I think that both of them suffered from soft matchmaking by Allah, and they kind of grew complacent, and they fizzled out.
Next on our list is Manny and Bobby Pacquiao. We don't need to sugarcoat this, Ryan. We all know that Manny was the more successful boxer, and in terms of talent, the difference was day and night. But let me ask, what were the good qualities Bobby once had as a boxer?
Well, I'll tell you this much: Bobby is way funnier. He had the infamous blow blow interview. If anyone's if anyone hasn't seen that yet, that's hilarious. And he has a great sense of humor about it. I remember one time watching Bobby hitting the bag in the gym, and I'm like, "Hey, you're making a comeback?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm making a comeback to the amateurs." Whatever you want to say about them, they combined Manny and Bobby Pacquiao combined for world championships in 8 different divisions. So you can't take away from that.
Wow, I'm speechless. Anyway, next on our list is the Donaire brothers. I know you're not a long lost relative of the Donaires, Ryan, but you know them more than I do. So can you tell us more about the synergy between Nonito Sr. and as the trainer of his children, June and Glenn?
Well, Nonito Sr. was a military man from General Santos City, and believed in tough love from both of them. And I think that really kind of shaped who they were as people and fighters. Now, what's interesting is that, we talk about Philippine boxing, Filipino versus Filipino. Nonito Jr. and Glenn both competed in the U.S. Olympic trials in 2000, and they boxed against Brian Valoria.
Yeah.
So that was like, it was all Filipino there. And but Glenn, a great guy, wonderful to talk to, really cool guy. I always enjoyed him. Nonito actually, when he won his first world championship against Vic Darchinyan, was avenging Glenn's previous loss to Darchinyan.
Last on our list, the Peñalosa brothers. There's no debate needed here, Brian, because Jerry and Doddy Boy Sr. are the most decorated sibling boxers in Philippine boxing. But why do you think Doddy Boy Jr. and Dave never captured the same magic? And I believe JC, the eldest son of Jerry, doesn't want to be near boxing and prefers to play basketball with the legend named Ryan Songalia.
Well, first off, JC is a great kid. I love him. I've known him since he was a little boy. I actually, I think that if he wanted to box, he could box. I've seen him box. He has some skills. He's actually, believe it or not, his name is Julio Cesar, right?
Yeah.
He is named after Julio Cesar Chavez. That was Jerry's favorite boxer at the time. But yeah, I think that with Jerry and Dodie Boy, they are. Jerry didn't want boxing for his kids. He believed that and he's raised like really intelligent kids, so they're doing their own thing. I'm glad for them. But Jerry and Dodie Boy, it's funny, they have different styles in a way. Like Dodie Boy was this heavy-handed puncher, like knocking out guys with one punch. And Jerry was more like, a technical fighter. He had some mobility but he liked to put the pressure on you. Very intelligent. I remember, like, I boxed with him once, and it took him like 5 seconds to break me down mentally, and I just already gave up. Like, he did one thing, and I was just like, I'm done, man. Like, and he's like, you tried to use your size on me. I'm like, you tried to use your world championship ability on me, so leave me alone.
But how about Doddy Boy Jr. and Dave? I see a lot. I saw a lot of potential in them, but they failed to just live up to the name, or at least recapture the same magic that their father had.
I would say it's the silk pajamas, situation. It's like, it's hard to get up and run when you have silk pajamas on. Dodie Boy Jr., I thought, had amazing physical ability. He could punch. If he was not Dodie Boy Jr., if he was just some kid from the province,
Yeah.
and, he would have been a world champion, I think. Dave, I think, was a little bit maybe tougher, right? Like he gave more in the gym, and he had, a little bit more. I think he had to compensate a little bit more because he didn't have some of the physical. He didn't have the one punch power that Dodie Boy did. But Dave, I think he's now doing some training. He went to school. I think he's another guy that his life is actually probably better out of the ring, because he has some things that he can do otherwise. But amazing tattoo game.
Correct. For our next segment, we turn it over to our colleague, Boyet Season.
Okay mga kaibigan, meron po tayong panauhin ngayon sa ating programa, sa segment po na ito. He is a doctor of sports medicine, an orthopedic surgeon, and the delegation team doctor of Team Philippines at the Tokyo Olympics just recently. Mga kaibigan, wala po yung bako, this is Dr. Randy Molo. Doc Randy, thank you for joining us here on the program. And let me shoot already the first question. Yaman lang na ikaw ang delegation team doctor, which also includes looking over our boxers during the boxing competitions at the Budokan Hall. Doc, what goes into prepping boxers for, let's say, for prepping boxers for a competition like, let's say, the Olympics?
Well, actually, our boxers had to go through a lot. You very well know that the Olympics was 1 year delayed. So the initial problem that we had was finding training locations for them locally. So I think the plan ended up with them going overseas and doing the preparations there. So most of the time, what they tend to do is like do their usual strength and conditioning, their footwork, all of their functional drills. And I think they put in some sparring time also when they were in Thailand. And that's an important thing, since wala masyadong competition, wala masyadong exposures. The only chance that they got was really the sparring that they do in Thailand. And minsan nga, nagkaka-cross sparring pa sila. Sometimes they spar with other members of the Team Philippines that are of a different gender or of a different weight class. So that's what they had to go through to prepare for the Tokyo Olympics.
Doc, of course, you've also worked or have been consulted not only for amateur sports but for professional boxers as well. Can you give our audience just a very short comparative as to how amateur boxers train and how do professional boxers train? Or better question, is there a difference?
Well, there's the obvious things that you have to start with muna. So for example, they have to prepare for shorter duration of bouts. So for amateurs, it's around like 3 rounds lang. Professionals can get anywhere from 4 rounds to 12 rounds. So mas mahaba talaga yung preparation nila in terms of endurance, conditioning, etc. And another important thing you will realize is that they use different size gloves. So yung mga amateur actually mas mabigat ang gloves nila compared to the professionals. So when they train, they also keep that in mind kasi speed is important, the way they hold up their gloves for the duration of the bout is important. So ganun sila nagkakaiba-iba rin sa preparation nila in terms of training.
How were you able to say from the first bout of each fighter? What were the recovery? I mean, what did you do for recovery? For example, after the fight, medyo merong isa masakit yung wrist or masakit yung kamao. Ano ang or masakit sa katawan, di ba? What can you tell us about the little tidbits that they encountered during that whole period that they were competing?
First of all, we were very, very lucky in terms of, injuries, nothing major, definitely. Yung mga typical na sumasakit ang kamay, actually isa lang po ang medyo nag-complain nun, si Yumir. Alam niyo naman kasi bumato rin si Yumir, so talagang all out din. So sumasakit ng konti yung knuckle niya. But he's had that prior issue nung Asian Games pa, so I saw him also for that. And in terms of recovery, when their day ends and they leave Bodokan and they go back to the athletes village, they do have the full complement of services ng polyclinic. So meron silang acupuncture, pwede silang mag-access doon ng sports massage, etc. On our own little team delegation medical clinic, I do have cupping services available. And so, yun ang parang nila, yung pagkakain nila, ika nga. So, punta dining hall, babalik sila sa office namin sa clinic, may higa, magsi-cellphone, catch up ng konti sa balita, and then nakadapa, nagpapakapping sa likod or sa mga arms nila. And then they take a short nap, and then they go back to their rooms. Parang ganun po yung naging parang ritual namin sa kanila during the multi-days that they prepare for the day-to-day competitions. And if they're lucky to advance, ganoon din po. Yung mga hindi na-advance, actually si Irish lang, the coaches allowed her to more or less recover on her own, mentally. Siyempre may konting hurt dyan, may konting dyan. So they allowed her to her own time and not require her the other difficult day-to-day things na encounter na iba.
Obviously, all of our boxers have their own respective coaches, di ba? May sariling teams yan di ba? May kanya-kanyang mga nag-guide sa kanila. How is your being the team delegation doctor, and how were you interacting with their own respective coaches? Paano yung cooperation doon?
Actually, yung mga coaches po nila talagang sobrang dikit nila. They consider them father figures. Talagang sila yung kino-confide nila both for boxing-related, non-boxing-related matters. I took a lot of hands off, and that's how I approach it. Kumbaga, just approach me and ask me anything, but if not, then I just look around, observe, etc. But the coaches were very knowledgeable, believe it or not po. Marami na rin silang pinagdaanan ng mga seminars, even for cut management, yung pag mga sugat, kaya po nila lahat yan. Magagaling na po sila dyan. So mostly, I was just like really observing them, and they were doing a fine job preparing these boxers, even from a recovery, strength and conditioning, mental recovery standpoint.
Well, it's been quite a while already since the Olympics ended, no, Doc Randy. And now we are looking forward to the Southeast Asian Games, the Asia, and in a few years. I mean, less than 4 years from now, it's Paris already. How do you see, now that we've learned so many things from this experience in Tokyo, where we were able to get a lot of medals, no? Ano ang magiging advice? Anong magiging advice mo? Or ano yung napapansin mo na gagawin natin or gagawin naman boksingero natin at yung mga gustong pumasok din sa national team, hopefully, what would you advise them to do if they want to be at that level?
Just a little bit of background. I've been helping out with boxing since 2006, and alam po naman natin IABA is the governing body of amateur boxing. Nung nalaman ko po na Boxing Task Force ito, IOC really made sure that the judging was competitive naman po at fair. It's a huge sigh of relief for everybody, including the coaches. And true enough, our boxers are technically sound, tactically sound ever since. Kaya lang na sisilat ng konti sa scoring. And so, when Tokyo rolled by, napakaganda pong makita rin na na-appreciate yung boxers natin for their skills. And the scoring is more or less fair and talaga namang commensurate sa mga pinakita ng boxers natin. And we hope that in the future competition, sana masundan yung ganon. So that's what we're crossing our fingers for. But obviously, any boxer who wants to go into that field, talaga pong panghabang buhay ang preparasyon. You don't just walk in there and call yourself an amateur boxer. You don't just show up there without your full commitment to the sport. Talaga pong buhay, kain, isip, hinga, boxing po kayo dyan pag talagang papasukin niyo po yung amateur boxing.
Well, Doc Randy, maraming salamat sa papaunlak mo sa ating sa pag-usap sa amin ng araw na to. Marami ako natutunan, I'm sure. Marami din natutunan ang ating mga tagapanood at tagapakinig. Mga kaibigan, ang delegation team doctor of Team Philippines at this year's Tokyo Olympics, a doctor of sports medicine and an orthopedic surgeon, si Dr. Randy Molo. Doc Randy, maraming salamat po.
Thanks, Boyet. And that's the final bell for today's episode of Round by Round, presented by Eastern Communications. I'm EC Casiano.
And I'm Ryan Sangalia. We're on Facebook at 9 p.m. Monday through Friday and on our YouTube channel right after. So like, follow, share, and subscribe now. And also don't forget to hit the notification bell to get notified about the latest news and the fearless views in the world of boxing.
Boyet Season, Dennis Principe, and Ryan Sangalia are working the fights for you tomorrow. So catch them on the next Round by Round. All boxing, all Filipino, all the time. See you tomorrow.